Okay, hi. Welcome to our fourth lecture in the Dante lecture series. In this lecture, it'll be a short one, but I want to address or talk about Dante's guide. In this case, it's a Roman poet named Virgil. So just to recap where we are right now, Dante has received word while walking in these woods, and we'll look at part one or canto one in the next one. But he's receives word from a lost love, Beatrice, this woman that he idealized, and Beatrice comes to him with kind of a frantic message. Actually, she doesn't come to him at all, but she's worried about him. So she has asked permission to use one of the souls in hell, actually one of the souls in limbo, someone that Dante would recognize and somebody that Dante would listen to and respect. And that person's name is Virgil. He's a Roman poet. He's a quite famous Roman poet, one of Dante's favorites, obviously. And Beatrice uses him as an intercessor or an intermediary who will guide Dante through hell, through the Inferno, through Purgatorio, up through Mount Purgatorio, the 10 levels there, and up to the realm of heaven, at which point Beatrice will take over and then guide him the rest of the way. So it's a daunting task, but it's this idea that Dante, he doesn't know his way. He's lost in the dark wood. So he calls upon the thing that's most familiar to him, which is his poetry. And it's not an accident that he chooses Virgil. Virgil was a Roman poet living before Christ, so his time span is generally taken to be about 70 BC till about 19 BC. So he would have been about 20 years before the birth of Christ. So he would not have known in any way, shape, or form what the idea of Christianity was. So in Dante's Catholic world, Virgil would have been one of those pagans who came before Christ, therefore could not have known the redemption and the saving grace of Christ. So he would be consigned to a place called limbo. Limbo is a place where we find virtuous people, even if they are pagan, even if they're Muslim, even if they're a Christian, or at least in action, but were never baptized. So infants, people who died before that opportunity, people who never had an opportunity to know Christ. All the great forefathers of the Jewish faith, from Abraham, Adam and Eve, Noah, all of these inhabit limbo. And Virgil is there too. Virgil takes the mission. He lets Dante know first who he is, not to be afraid, and that he will carry him through. So what exactly, or who exactly is Virgil? So he is a Roman poet living through really kind of the tumult of Rome. So a big span of his life up until about 44 BC when Julius Caesar dies is under the reign of Julius Caesar. So all that cast of characters you know from your history, from your Shakespeare, they are a living, breathing part of Virgil's life. He is an Italian, and he is most famous for setting to poetry the great story of the founding of Rome. So what he does is he takes a cue from his Greek counterpart, a man named Homer, believed to be a man, could be a woman as well. And he retells this narrative of the end of the Trojan War and how when the Greeks come in and take everything apart and sack the city, there's a small group of people who manage to escape. They are led by a warrior named Aeneas. And Aeneas has several adventures. So if you can imagine or remember your learning of the Odyssey, you learned about Odysseus sailing around the Mediterranean, having adventures in different places, meeting some of these mythic creatures and monsters. On the other side of the Mediterranean is where we would find Aeneas sailing with his group of sailors, having some similar adventures. And so there's a nice parallel, except instead of the Greeks being the heroes of the story, it's the Trojans. And the Trojans will become the founding fathers. Aeneas conquers Italy, and that allows the Romans under Romulus and Remus to come in and basically solidify or establish the Roman Empire. So Dante is a patriot, and so is Virgil. They're both Italian to the core, and so this tale is very popular. And in some ways, Dante rides on Virgil's coattails because he knows that Virgil is hugely important to the Italians, and so by putting him into his poem and putting him in a prominent position, it opens the door for Dante to latch on to that popularity and include him within his work. Now, that's not the only thing he'll borrow from Dante. This whole notion of the underworld and the trip down below, he takes right out of Book 6 of Virgil's great work called the Aeneid. And the Aeneid chronicles the fleeing from Troy of Aeneas and his men, to all the way to, you know, the founding, when finally he lands and reaches what his destiny is supposed to be. But about halfway through the journey, there's Book 6. And in Book 6, this is where Virgil has Aeneas travel to the underworld. His father has died, and he is trying to communicate with him one last time. So he seeks and is granted permission to travel as a living soul into the underworld, which is populated by dead souls, so that he can say goodbye to his father. He's granted that wish. He has adventures along the way. He has to fulfill certain things. He does, he doesn't. He does manage to get to see his father, but along the way, he meets several like imposing figures. It's some of these mythic figures, again, that Dante will use to populate his Inferno. So early on, I talked about how you have to be careful when you read the Inferno that you don't take it as a purely religious text. Dante is borrowing a lot from Homer. He's borrowing a lot from Virgil. So you'll see this world that's populated with very easily recognizable Christian figures, as well as very easily recognizable mythological figures. And they kind of inhabit this underworld that Dante has created for us. In some ways, the mythic creatures that we see in Virgil's Aeneid, that we see in Homer's Odyssey, these are like the security guards in the prison that is Inferno. They will take the task, or take on the task, of being kind of the tormentors and the overseers of these souls who are spending their eternity, you know, immersed in their own sin and not able to kind of escape that. So Virgil, hugely important figure for Dante. He's going to take him on this journey, and like I said, he has much to teach. And I guess one final note is Dante is told by Virgil that he's got really a couple of rules to follow while he's on this trip. And one of them is that he must stay on the path. He can't go off on his own, because if he does, he's going to wind up stuck. He needs that guidance of Virgil. So he's got to follow that yellow brick road. The second thing he tells him is, be careful of who you talk to in hell. Remember, no one is in hell unless they deserve to be there. And so Dante's told that, remember, the people in hell will lie to you, and you cannot trust what they have to say. Or if you can only trust in a certain way what they have to say. A lot of what they talk will be doublespeak. It will be disguised to make themselves look good or feel good or justify their own actions. So Dante's got to be very careful. He does manage to have some close calls, as we'll see as we kind of go through this play. All right, so that's our lecture for today. We'll catch up with you next time, and we'll actually start to get into the Dark Wood and talk about, you know, what happens in Canto 1.